Well, we're starting to learn that the Democrats never had a platform. That's good news. So America might seem half screwed up, but they've been under a spell with fake news making them think that these positions are more popular than they actually are. They've been funded by their scam government, just absolute scam. So they never had the market forces show them how unpopular they were until this last election. So then they'll make adjustments. They'll change their views. The Democrats, as bad as they are, it's all been held up with fake. It's all been fake, and here's the news media to prove it. NPR is part of the fake. The PBS is part of the fake. Welcome to The Doug Show. Watch this.
And that's really what the heart of Jim Jordan got to, the Ohio congressman, asking NPR about the bias at the outlet, really pointing to the whistleblower Uri Berliner, who had been a former NPR reporter, who shed light on sort of the makeup of viewpoints within the newsroom. Let's watch.
Mr. Berliner, in his story last year, wrote, in the D.C. area, editorial positions at NPR, he said he found 87 registered Democrats, 0 Republicans. Is that accurate?
We do not track the numbers or the voter registration, but I find that
concerning. Was award-winning journalist who worked 25 years at NPR, Mr. Berliner, was he lying when he wrote that?
I am not presuming such. I just don't have... We don't track that information about it.
I track the information. I don't have to even look at the numbers. Of course they're out. They're biased. 87 registered Democrats to 0 Republicans. Of course. That's how the whole thing works, guys. That's the entire Democrat Party. They are a giant lie. That's the news. That's the good news. America's not as screwed up as you thought they were. They were lying, misrepresenting how popular. They were never that popular. They were buoyed by fake votes, by fake registers, fake money, Soros money pumping it in. It was never real. And by the way, the reason why any Republican that worked anywhere near NPR or PBS would never tell you what their registration was because they knew they didn't want to get fired. Because that's what PBS would do. That's what liberals do.
Our journalists.
87 to 0? And you're not biased.
I think that is concerning if those numbers are accurate.
Well, it should be concerning that you're biased. You're moron. How can you pretend like you're smart and look at those numbers and go, wow, those are concerning? They're not just concerning. That should be more than concerning. Your little logical mind. I know that the females are not as good at STEM, but I think you can figure out statistics a little better than that. You know, when she plays dumb, when she plays blonde like this, I don't know what that means. I know what it means. It means you're either dumb or biased.
It also really speaks for itself. Again, this was revealed in an article written by Berliner for the Free Press. But Tim, does this sort of confirm what we've all believed to be true over the past years, that there's really only one lens in which these stories are being told?
Well, they had really funny responses in real time where Steve Inskeep, the morning edition anchor, was like, well, I registered as an independent. Yeah, but we listened to you. He's done like 10 suck-up interviews with Obama. He's still doing suck-up interviews with Hakeem Jeffries. He just did one with AOC. We know which party you belong to, Steve. So the real number there that's important is the 0 Republicans. There is nobody in there. And Catherine Mark can say, well, we don't track that. No, but everyone knows where you're coming from. I believe that these crazy tweets of hers about how America's addicted to white supremacy, they knew about them and they helped her get the job.
Yeah, I've worked in several newsrooms, and I can tell you, you know the sentiment in your newsroom. You know where each producer, reporter stands. It's very apparent. And if it's 87 to 0, yeah, you do track it.
Hey, it's not just the newsroom, my people. Animator, I'm a show creator at Nickelodeon. You know it. I worked at Warner Brothers. I've sold projects to Disney. DreamWorks, I worked a ton at DreamWorks. I worked in video games for Electronic Arts. Some Sega Genesis, the biggest names in video games, Image Comics, Scholastic Comics. I've worked in all media. I'm one of the few conservative Christians that have worked and gotten awards in all media, all of it. They all know who the Republican is, and everyone knows it's Democrats. You open your mouth, you're done. If you're a Republican, you're done. This is everyone's workroom. If you're a public teacher, if you're a teacher and you're working, dealing with the union, everyone knows it was open season on Republicans.
Because it's in your face, and also your reporter wrote about it in your article there, so you've read it. I wanted to stay with Berliner if I can, because he also criticized NPR's coverage of the Hunter Biden laptop story, and this one was big, right? Remember, they didn't want to cover it. They didn't want to waste their time or waste the readers or viewers, listeners' time. But here it is. He wrote in the Free Press, quote, "The laptop was newsworthy, but the timeless journalistic instinct of following a hot story lead was being squelched. And during a meeting with colleagues, I listened as one of NPR's best and most fair-minded journalists said, it was good we weren't following the laptop story because it could help Trump." I mean, here it is. When you say it's not biased, and here you are having one of your journalists of 20 years come out and say they're not covering it because it would help the other side politically.
Now, that was Berliner, the 20-year journalist, and he was not a Democrat, not a leftist anyways. He was a normal guy. And boy, did he learn quickly, man. They snapped it off on him so hard. You start to learn. You go, and if PBS is no longer journalism, they're not following the story. This is a Democrat advocate group that your tax dollars artificially paid to stay front and center. Their entire audience is tainted. Their entire audience is gaslit. Their entire audience are a bunch of zombie robots. And even the right-wingers that watch PBS and NPR, which, we have lots of family members. We listen to this stuff all the time. You kind of go, are the Democrats right? Are the Republicans? Trump he is crazy, right? He really is rude. They tell you what to think. It has a effect to a point that I believe Democrats are probably getting, most agree. It's around 5 to 15% points. I would say 15% vote points toward any Democrat. And now that's gone. Take that 15% away. In other words, Democrats will never win another election because they lost that media hold. The people aren't buying it anymore. They're onto their stinky, lying regime. Psychotic.
Yeah, that really defines what liberal bias is.
Right.
Their news judgment is colored by, it's not news if it helps Trump. We all know this, right? They're not covering the successful strike on the Houthis. They're doing a story about how they used Signal instead because they have to do the negative angle. So it really is one of those things that the Hunter Biden laptop is Exhibit A. They were so explicit that that was a pure distraction, was the word that they used there. And honestly, they really never fixed it. She said, we decided it was a mistake. If you've listened to NPR during the Biden years, they never acknowledged that was a mistake. They kept insisting that anybody focusing on Hunter Biden was some sort of right-wing crank.
Yeah. They never fixed it. They never apologized. They never wanted you to know. And speaking of never wanting you to know, look, here's Tim Walz admitting they're a bunch of psychotic propaganda. Watch this.
We see one of the first things they do is try and restrict the vote. This is one of the things, though, that this is going to take power to the streets. And I don't know what the answer is on this, but I've been saying this. I think we need a shadow government so when all these things come up every single day, we've got an alternate press conference telling the truth about what things are happening, telling what's going out.
Holy smokes, he said they need a shadow government. This is psycho. He goes, we need a shadow government so that when they do their press reporting, we have our... Tim Walz, you've had all of media and all journalists on your side for 40 years. That's gotten worse and worse. I believe the peak was 2020, which is why I think Biden won. I think that was peak media penetration right before it collapsed. And look at this audience. He goes, we need a shadow government. And the audience applauds of Democrats, zombies. Those are your Democrat friends. And we're here to liberate y'all, guys. Pass this video on to your friends and show them, your Democrat friends, just how they've been brainwashed by a Democrat party that hates their guts and wants to turn us all into human sausage and eat us. I'm Doug.